Good morning and welcome to 1 Million Cups. How's everybody doing this morning? My name's Evan Anderson. I'm with Gizmonics, and I am really excited to be your MC today. Welcome to everybody. Welcome to everybody that's streaming. We're streaming on YouTube now. I think we're maybe still doing Facebook too in the interim. I don't know. So for those of you out there streaming, you can ask questions and stuff as always. And for those of you here, welcome, welcome. Any new people here today? Anybody that has not been to a 1 Million Cups before? Oh, look at all the newbies. We gave away some nice welcome. Got some green stickers today probably. Nice. Well, welcome. Well, we're excited to have you here today and hope that you can make this part of your Wednesday morning habit. So, especially for the new folks here, what is 1 Million Cups? What are we doing here? Well, this is our 12th year of doing this every Wednesday morning. And what we typically do is put an entrepreneur, community builder on stage. We got a little bit different twist today. We've got a subject matter expert, which we do occasionally as well, where we've got a topic where we think that that you, our audience, will benefit from learning something from somebody that knows. So, but typically, just putting somebody on this stage that's doing cool things in our community, celebrating them, also then doing questions and answers, getting some feedback at the end. Typically today, I think it's going to be probably a little bit one way. I think we're going to be asking questions and getting some good information, but it's also an opportunity for us as an audience to support our speakers. So the big takeaway here is, can we change the face of our startup community over 1 million cups of coffee? So we're well on our way. We've doled out a lot of coffee over 12 years. All right, so there are a lot of people and a lot of companies that come together. We're a completely volunteer organization, loosely affiliated group of kooky people that have put this together for 12 years, and there are a lot of people behind the scenes supporting that. We've got companies that support us a little bit financially. We've got some that allow their employees to help out on company time, etc. So if you see these companies, please thank them or these people and let them know that the work that we're doing here is worth doing for the community. All right, 3 pages. That's pretty awesome. All right. Well, thanks to all of them. So as I mentioned, we're going to have Q&A at the end, and that's where things get really super interesting. So be thinking about some questions as Dr. Pilling is talking this morning, and when he's finished, I think, Janya, you're going to run the mug mic around, and we'll get those questions asked for you, or you'll be able to ask them, I mean. All right, we have a whole slew of community announcements this morning, so let's get into them. So, Mug Club, Janya, do you want to?
So most of you are fully trained up. For those of you who haven't been here before, hopefully you received an orange mug when you came in, a reusable mug. Every time you come back to 1 Million Cups, we mug you. We put a little mug-shaped sticker on there. And as you accumulate mug-shaped stickers, you earn more and more exciting swag. Up to and including, at some point, I think at 25, you get a cool t-shirt like this. And then we start roping you in, and you have to volunteer for stuff. No, I'm just kidding. But there's all kinds of cool swag. There were examples of everything out there. And then the highest honor is at 50. You get the Golden Mug Award, and we have a number of Golden Mug Award recipients in the audience today. Hi, Joe. Hi, Bill. Hi, Mike. So we've got 3 Golden Mug holders today. So it's something to aspire to.
3 of them. That's 150 cups of coffee just for those 3. All right, it is National Vanilla Ice Cream Day today. We like to celebrate every day. So get out and get yourself some vanilla ice cream today. We talked about doing a big vanilla ice cream thing this morning, and we didn't get it off the ground. So you're on your own, but do celebrate. We did, yeah, we did. We celebrated a day early. Yep. Okay, we have the library. Is Tyler? Okay. Okay.
So Tyler, if it's all right, I'll do the library ones. Okay. This one is so groovy. I really want to go. Tomorrow at 6:30 at the library, they've got kind of a guest speaker entertainer who's going to be there, and he's going to be playing some oldies and goodies. And anyway, it's very retro, very cool, and very, very groovy. So if you're looking to get your 70s vibe back on, head over to the library tomorrow. Next one, Evan?
It's free to cool cats.
It's free to cool cats.
Everyone else has to pay.
And I know I could sneak in as a nerd. I don't think they're not on to me yet, right? Okay. Oh, this is so cool. This is also the library. So if you read about this, basically, if any gardeners out there, does anybody have a garden? A few of you? Okay. You know those spare zucchini? And then you run around town trying to find a car that's unlocked so you can stick the zucchini in there. Well, you can actually take those zucchini to the library, actually, and any other produce. So if you've got a garden that's just going gonzo, you can take your extra stuff to the library, and they've got basically an exchange. And so also, if you don't have a garden and you're hankering for some fresh veggies, or you know somebody who's having a little trouble getting some fresh food on the table for their family, they can go to the library and get the abundance from other people's gardens. So I'm pretty excited, because usually I bring my extra stuff here to 1 Million Cups. So don't worry, Joe. I'll still bring some zucchini. I know you're thinking about that. So, okay, we're good. Oh, can you do this one?
Oh, sure. All right, so applications are open for the Mandan Business Pitch Challenge. This is a program that had been around for a long time. I think they didn't do it last year, but it is back. And City of Mandan, in addition to Chamber EDC and SBDC, are putting this together. So basically, it's a business pitch challenge, and there are fabulous prizes and a lot of support. It's a great way for people with an idea for a new business to kind of come together and compete a little bit, but also get some good support. And I think a lot of their prizes are in-kind type things where they'll get continued support then if they're in the top 3, I believe it was. So if you or somebody you know is kind of in that spot where you're looking to start something, I would highly, highly recommend this program. We've been to the award ceremony a number of times, and it's very, very well put together program. Okay, yes.
Just a reminder that the monthly coffee and conversation for people who are involved with nonprofits, whether you work for a nonprofit or volunteer, or if it's a combination of both, you work for free, you're welcome to join us. It's just a very casual conversation. It's always the first Thursday of the month from 9 to 10. We do move around a lot, though, so we do recommend that you join our Facebook group so that you can see when we create a new event, or just leave a message there, and we can add you to the list to get you on the calendar invite. In August, we're going to be at BSC again at the National Energy Center, and come join us. Is the next one mine too? Yeah, okay. Bisbee Community Foundation. Yes, so in addition to the grants that we make to local projects, we also want to recognize people in our community who are giving back in a significant way through their time, their talent, their treasure. So go to our website, take a look at the different categories that we have. If you know someone like that in the community, you can nominate them, and you can nominate as many people as you want. You just can't nominate yourself, but it's okay to ask somebody else to nominate you if you think you are deserving of this award. That is okay. The deadline is August 30th. Everything's online, and of course, if you've got questions, you can just email us.
Thank you. Yep. A traffic jam. You're another. Yeah, and we're up to 200.
I was going to yell 4, but it wasn't worth it to call you out like that. It's all good. I'm Chris Kalish from Ann Carlson. I want to invite you all to come to our August 14th fundraising event called suits and boots. We are still looking for sponsors. We still have tickets available. You can use the QR code to get tickets. And we still need volunteers. Volunteers can help set up in the early part of the afternoon. We haven't settled on that yet. Probably start setting up around noon. And then you can also work some of we'll have games, live music, silent auction, live auction, and so we'll just need some people that can assist with some of those items too. If you are interested in volunteering, get in touch with me. I've got some business cards. Some of you know how to get in touch with me in other ways. Good time raising some awareness of the work that Ann Carlson does statewide and right here in the Bismarck-Mandan area.
Thank you, Chris. Do we have anybody? Okay, so Fit for Victory, was she here last week? She was. Okay. What? Okay, there it is. Shelter number 10, Sertoma Park, Color Blast Fun Dash. Okay. Do we remember? Anybody? Shoot. Okay, there is a QR code. Somebody should scan that. Tell us and fill us in. Okay. All right, no worries. Well, there it is. Okay. Any other community announcements this morning? Anybody else? Anybody? Okay. Well, good. And then let's get moving. I'm really excited. We've got Dr. Terry Pilling here today from University of Mary. He's the Dean of the Ham Engineering School up there. A little bit of a shameless plug. If you know anything about the engineering program up there or have been there, I've had the opportunity to actually did a quick teach piece up there a couple of years ago, but also have had the opportunity to speak quite often with Terry and tour the school, and it is unbelievable what they're doing up there. If I were back in my hiring engineers days, I would probably look no further than the folks that are going through that program. It's phenomenal. So really excited to have him here. And really excited to hear what he has to teach us this morning. So let's give it up for Terry. Come on, Terry.
Hopefully. There we go. Okay, good. I might be sitting down for some of it because it's going to be active. I'm going to do some things right in front of you, and it has to be done on my computer. So I'll be standing up and sitting down. This is not an AI overview, but an AI underview. I'm not going to tell you all the many things that AI does. I'm just basically going to tell you what's common underneath them. I'm a theoretical physicist. And one thing that theoretical physicists like to do is to simplify things down to their most fundamental, essential quantities, and then look at those and study those fundamental, simple things, and see if you can generalize from those what's going to be in the complicated one. Now, AI is a prototype of very complicated things, and it seems almost impossible to understand it when you look at it. But there are some simple underlying things that are inside it, that once you understand it, I hope by the end of this, you'll be a little bit surprised about what's really going on. So, this is the complicated stuff. Artificial intelligence involves all of these things that you see here. Expert systems, machine learning, deep learning. You'll hear all this terminology, and actually 3 times that much terminology. People will use all these different words. I'm going to be talking about a part of AI, which is not large language models, although what I'm going to talk about is inside them. I'm going to talk about neural networks. Okay? So what are neural networks? Neural networks are not search engines. And by the way, while I'm talking, you should be thinking about ChatGPT or these large language models that everybody's talked about. I'm going to demonstrate 2 very simple neural networks, but they'll look simple, and you'll think, wow, those are simple. But just remember that ChatGPT and all the big ones everybody uses, Gemini and OpenSeek or DeepSeek or all these other ones, are just the same thing, only much, much bigger, okay? And then in your mind, the things I say about the smaller ones, ask yourself about the bigger one and see if that gives you some enlightenment about how the big one works, okay? They're not search engines. And that's something a lot of people are confused at. They think that when they type into the AI, it's going out and searching the internet and finding the answer for you and then summarizing it. You know, it doesn't even have to be connected to the internet. No internet connections needed. It's running on your computer. Well, the ones that you access online, like ChatGPT, are running on a computer, but they're not searching the web, okay? All they do is they take data as input, and by data I mean numbers. Takes numbers as input, does some math calculations on those numbers, and then sticks numbers out the other side. That's all they all do. And you'll see that clearly as we go through. So much of modern AI is based on neural networks. In fact, the impressive large language models that we're getting stunned by daily are based on neural networks. And neural networks are matrices, weights, and activations. And those are just fancy words for math. They're numbers. Numbers, okay? Good. Here's the structure. Now, there's going to be some complicated looking slides, but they're not complicated. You're all business leaders, and you see complicated graphs and stuff all the time. So this won't blow your mind, especially when I just explain what they are. Over here is the input layer. Remember, these are all numbers. Every little square box, there's a number inside it, okay? Like 2.5 or -6. They're just numbers. The one I'm going to show you is not this complicated. ChatGPT is much, much more complicated than this. In other words, way more boxes. ChatGPT has about 1.2 trillion boxes, I believe. Okay, so there's more boxes, but the fundamentals are exactly the same. It's just more boxes, okay? Keep that in mind. So here's the input layer. That's a big collection of numbers. I just have two here, just for example, x1 and x2. Those are like two numbers. You stick them in. W is a bunch of numbers that you multiply these ones by. So you take these, you multiply them by a whole set. W is actually a matrix, which is an array of numbers. But basically, you take these two, you multiply them by a whole bunch of numbers. Then it becomes these four. After you've done that multiplication, it's these four. Okay? Then you take these four, and you multiply them by another bunch of numbers. And it becomes these ones. And you keep doing that. This is the number of hidden layers. ChatGPT has 120 of these layers. Okay? The one I'm going to show you has one. But it's just a generalization. And then at the very end, the very last layer, and you just stop wherever you feel like it, and you get a last layer, and those are the numbers that came out. I could have chopped it off here, and then this would be the last layer. But I chop it off somewhere, and some numbers come out. Now, here's how you train this network. This is the correct answer that I want. So I have a bunch of training data that has the input numbers and then the numbers I want it to come out with. And so those are the correct ones, and here's the one that the thing came out with. I always start out with with all these W's. The W's, by the way, are the neural network. You give me the W's, I put them in here, and now I can do all that math and get these guys. Okay, once these guys come out, I compare them with the right answer. In fact, I subtract them. And if the answer is not 0, then they're not the same. If the answer is not 0, what I do is I go all the way back through here, and I tweak each of those W's, tweak it a little bit, so that it becomes closer to 0 at the end. In other words, the answer becomes closer to the right answer. And that's it. I keep doing that over and over again with so-called training data. Training data is a question and the correct answer. If somebody gives me a question and the correct answer, I can stick it through here and keep doing that until eventually these W's are such that those particular numbers give me the right answer when I put the question in. Get it? Okay. Sorry, that was a hard-looking thing, but I think I explained it in such a way that it's not that tough to see. So what is an XOR gate? And I'll tell you why I chose this in a second. An XOR gate is a logic gate. Computers are nothing but a whole big collection of logic gates. Logic gates are things like and, or. In other words, this and that, if they're both true, then the answer is true. If one of them isn't true, then this and that is not collectively true. You get the idea of how those work? An XOR gate, and I'll show you an example of it in a second, is just a logic gate, but it's a particular one that's interesting. It has two inputs, You input two things, and you get one output, and the output is, are those two things, let me show you. Here's the two inputs. Let me show you the traditional way of denoting an XOR gate. If the first input is a 0 and the second input is a 0, then the output is a 0. If the first input's a 0 and the second one's a 1, then the output's a 1. If it's a 1 and a 0, it's also a 1, and then if they're both 1s, it's a 0. And can you see that that's an exclusive OR? XOR stands for exclusive OR. It's this or that, but not both. Right? So is one of these a 1? Is this or that a 1? Yes, then this is a 1. Is this or this a 1? No, so the answer is a 0. Is this or this exclusively a 1? No, they're both 1s. That's not exclusive. Get it? Okay, that's what exclusive OR is. So here's the correct answers. It's not the whole internet of data. It's just four questions and answers. But that's all you need is a set of questions and correct answers, and you can train a network for it. Okay, so I'm going to train a neural network to be an XOR gate. Okay, and how do I do it? Well, there's my input layer, two numbers. A 0 and a 0, for example, could be those two numbers. And when I put it through, I want to get a 0 out. And if the two numbers are 0 and 1, I put it through, I want to get a 1 out, etc. Okay, and I have only one hidden layer in the middle. And then the output is right there. Okay, so I did this. By the way, this is the circuit diagram for an XOR gate, and this is the logic diagram for an XOR gate, in case you ever see those. The reason why we chose this is a very, very small, in fact, it's the simplest neural net that cannot be solved with a single layer neural network. You need the hidden layer in the middle. In other words, deep learning. Deep learning means there's hidden layers. Okay, so it's a simple demonstration on how neural networks work. And remember, large language models like ChatGPT are the same thing, only way more layers. Okay. And you can also do this on paper. It's just math. You can sit down with a piece of paper and you can calculate all these numbers out. No problem. Okay, here's the math. I'm not going to go too much into this. But the idea is there's our neural net. Here's the equations. It's just a math equation you can put in your calculator. H1, that's the middle layer there, H1. You can find that by taking the W, timesing it by X, plus the other W, times it by X, and add another number. And do this trig function on it. Same thing with H2. So now I got those two. I just use this formula to get those two. Then I use this formula to get the last one, the Y hat. And that's the output. You can see that you can sit down with a piece of paper and calculate those on your calculator. Your calculator has tan, H, and all that. Okay, now I get that answer. I want to compare it with the right answer. And the way I do that is I subtract the two, and then I square it. And the reason I square it is just so that it's always plus. It's always positive. If you take a negative number and you times it by another negative number, you get a positive number. I just want them always to be positive. Because I'm going to end up adding things together, and I want them to always add. I don't want two errors to cancel out. I want all the errors to add up so it doesn't look like it works, and it's actually just two big things canceling. Anyway, this thing's called a loss function. I'm going to mention that later, because that's the thing I want to minimize. I'd like it if the loss is 0. If the loss is 0, that means the network is exactly giving me the right answer. Okay? Okay. Sorry about all that math. There won't be any more. Now I want to train a neural network, and how do I do it? Like I said before, you start with problem and then solution pairs. The problem and the correct answer. So someone's got to give you those. And you input the problem, you compare the output with the known solution, you adjust the weights to reduce the loss function or the error. And you continue until the loss function is minimal. In other words, any more tweaking and it gets bigger instead of smaller. Then that's when you stop. How does this look diagrammatically? Now, you guys know all about graphs. So let me show you a couple of graphs. This could be profit versus time or something if you're in a business, but it's the loss versus the W's. The W's are those numbers that I'm multiplying everything by. So these are particular values of the W's. You can see the bottom of the curve here, the lowest amount of loss, is right there. So if I could figure out what this W is, I would have the minimum amount of error and my network would actually work. So how do I do it? Some calculus in there, but really it's just the slope of the line. If you look at here, that red arrow is the slope. If you draw the line, that's the direction of the curve's going, and that arrow is the direction it's going on the other side. So what we do, and this is how all of them work, even ChatGPT, is I adjust the weight, the W, a little bit in the opposite direction of this arrow. In other words, if dE by dW, or dE over dW, is positive, I subtract a little bit, because positive means it's going that way, and I want to go back down the other way. And if it's negative, the slope is down, meaning negative, up is positive. So if the slope is down, that means the slope's negative. That means I want, if I do negative slope, that's a positive number. In other words, I go this way. So basically what you do is you just keep tweaking it down, 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 until finally you get to the bottom. And if you're at the very bottom, any way you tweak it, you get more, you get higher. So you know you're at the bottom if it stops going down and starts going up again. Now I'm at the bottom, and what does that mean to be at the bottom? It means these W's work. Now you're done. You got a trained network. Now I can take that network, which is just a bunch of numbers, and I take the numbers, I can write them on a piece of paper and send them to my friend via snail mail if I want, and they can use those numbers to be an XOR gate. Okay. This is what I just told about the delta W that I add. Delta W for that one up there pushes me that way. Delta W for that one up there pushes me that way. Both of them going towards the bottom. All right. That's just an overview of what I'm going to show you right now. I'm going to train in epochs. What's an epoch? An epoch is all the training data. And you saw that table. I have 4 things. 0, 0, 0, 1, 1, 0, and 1, 1. And I know the right answer for all 4 of them. If I send each of the 4 in there and then go back and adjust the weights for each 4, that's 1 epoch. Now I do it again. Send the same 4 things back in there, adjust the weights back, that's epoch number 2. And I keep doing epochs over and over, and I find that my loss goes down, down, down the more I do it. And eventually I get to a point where I get a loss that's really small. 0 would be ideal, but usually it's like 0.001 or something. And then you have a neural network. And we're going to do it right here. So here's the part that might be a little different from the way most people show you their things. I'm going to go ahead here and write it. So everybody can see that? Okay. I already did it. In fact, here, let me show you one more slide here before I get into it. Oh, look, it makes me start all over again. So here's what I did for my demonstration. I got ChatGPT to write it for me. Why should anybody write anything anymore? Here's what I asked it. I said, write a minimal but working neural network in C that learns XOR truth table using tanh activation, stochastic gradient descent, 2 input neurons, 2 hidden neurons, and 1 output neuron. Include training using backpropagation, show the loss, and prediction outputs every 1,000 epochs. Now, obviously, I have to know something about it to make a prompt like that, don't I? The average person off the street might get nonsense out of the chat box because it doesn't word it like this. But when I put that in, it gives me a working C program, which I compile and run. And I'm going to show you it. The one I got was called XOR tanh, because tanh is the activation function. And then I'm going to test it with the machine. The machine is I just take the numbers, put it in another program that I can now just happily send numbers in. It'll give me the right answer every time. Okay, so let's go ahead then. I wish I knew how to keep this thing. Let's just keep that on there. Okay, can everybody see this? All right, so I've got this thing called XOR-tan. It's a C program. You want to see what it looks like? Oops. XOR-tan. There it is. It's a C program. If I go down, there it is. It's the whole thing. Okay, so let's go ahead and compile it. GCC XOR-tan and link the math libraries. Done. Now let's run it. There. I just trained my network. That was hard, wasn't it? If I scroll back up, if I scroll all the way up, you can see that epoch 0, the loss was 1.5. Epoch 0, that's when I first started. I put a random numbers in for the W's at the beginning, just random. So random numbers gives me a huge loss. If I put 2 zeros in, I get 0.181. If you round that to an integer, it's a 0. So that's actually correct, randomly. If I put a 0 and a 1 in, I get 0.33. And if you round that, you get 0. So I'm expecting a 1. That's the correct answer, and I got a 0. This one, when I put a 1 and a 0 in, I'm expecting a 1. And actually, 0.75 rounds to 1, so that serendipitously becomes correct, too. And this one here is actually, my answer is a 1. It rounds up to 1. The correct answer is a 0. So you can see at the beginning, it's not giving me the right answer. But after 50 epochs, that means I go through all 4 training things 50 times, tweaking the W's all the time, it gets a little closer. And if you go all the way to the end, 1,000 epochs, now you can see that is almost 0, that's almost 0, and these are pretty close to 1. If I did 1,000,000 epochs, it would be 0, 1, 1, 0. Okay? So that's how you train it. Now I have a bunch of W's. You want to see the W's? Here's the W's, because I had the program output them. There we go. No, it's hard to see. Can you see that? There's 9 of them. Those are the 9 numbers. I could take that, print it out, mail it, through the U.S. Postal Service to my buddy in Texas, and he could type those in, and he'd have a working XOR gate on his computer from those numbers. The hard part was finding which numbers of those are in order to make it an XOR gate. But that's all an XOR gate is now, is those numbers, right? Remember that when you think about what ChatGPT is. Okay. All right, now that we've seen that, please don't start at the beginning again. Oh, yeah, whatever. Luckily, I don't have a lot of slides. Okay, so here we are. One more demonstration. This one is MNIST. Has anybody ever heard of MNIST? MNIST is famous. In fact, one of the most highly cited AI papers. This thing fell out of my wallet or my back pocket. I'll just stuff it in my back pocket. One of the most famous AI papers by Jeff Hinton was using MNIST to figure out how to do distillation models. You remember DeepSeek? DeepSeek is a distillation model, and Jeff Hinton's paper showed how to do it using MNIST. So they use this to test ideas. And the reason they can use this to test ideas is because the big ones, like ChatGPT, are the same thing, only bigger. If you know how to do stuff on this, you can do them on them. Okay? Now, what am I going to do? MNIST is a data set, and what it is, sort of like those things where you see fire hydrants and you got to click on which one's a fire hydrant. That's what you're doing is training AI when you do that. You're giving it the correct answer. So now it can take that picture and it knows the correct answer. You just made it a data set. Problem, correct answer. That's what MNIST is. It's 60,000 images, and actually more than that. There's 10,000 test images and 60,000 training images. And all the images are little pictures of somebody's handwritten digits. And this was done eons ago, and you all use it every time you take a picture of a check, and it gets deposited into your bank account. This AI, MNIST, trained on MNIST, is the one that recognizes those numbers on your check. Okay? So let's go ahead and see. By the way, what am I going to use for a network? It's bigger than XOR. There's going to be 784 inputs. Instead of X1 and X2, 2 inputs, 784 of them. Why 784? Because the little pictures of the digits that they made are 28 pixels by 28 pixels, which makes 784 pixels. And I just take those pixels, and if it's black, it's a 0. If it's white, it's a 1. And if it's in between, it's some number like 0.5. That would be gray, halfway between black and white. You get it? So I can turn all those pixels into a grayscale number that's between 0 and 1, like 0.8, whatever. 728 of them. Put them in that input layer, send them through. I have one hidden layer, just like my XOR gate, except the hidden layer has 128 in it instead of 4 like I had in my XOR gate. And then there's 10 outputs. Why do I need 10 outputs? Because it's going to be one of the 10 digits, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and the output's going to be what the digit is. So so what I'm going to do is send the pixel numbers in, and then compare with the correct answer, which could be a number 4. You don't have to have the same thing on either side. You're training it. It doesn't know what you're training it to do. It's just taking numbers, putting them in a math formula, and spitting out numbers. Okay, so what do I do then? I'm going to train it. There's 60,000, but I'm only going to train it on 5,000 of them because I don't want to sit here and wait. And we'll see what happens, okay? So here, let me just give you an idea what the images look like first. By the way, here's a training example. I'll do it in front of you. But here's what the images look like. You see how there's pixels? I zoomed way in. If you zoom out, it looks like a 7. This one, if you zoom out, it looks like a 2, okay? Something interesting, though, I'll show you the trained network says, yeah, I predict that's a 7, and it is a 7. And the trained network says, I predict that's a 2, and it is a 2. But I only trained it on 5,000 of the samples instead of 60,000, and I only did about 50 epochs instead of thousands of epochs. So guess what else happens? That. The image is labeled as a 4, but my neural net says it's a 9. You can kind of see why. I wouldn't give them a complete F and kick them out of class for that. I mean, I've written 9s like that too. In fact, I usually go the other way when it's a check. If it's a 4, I'll make it more look like a 9 than a 4. See what happens. Maybe the AI can get tricked. Okay. Oh, I don't want to do the conclusion just yet. Instead of that, I want to just show you something first. And I'll have to go through all my stupid slides again, no doubt. Okay, so I'm going to go to my MNIST data here. There's my little program. GCC, that's the compiler. MNIST. Now I'm going to run it, and if I run it wrong, it'll give me some instructions. I wrote it that way. So I'm going to send the 60,000 training images in. I'm going to train it on the 60,000 training images, and I'm going to send it and use the training labels. Somebody had to sit down and draw. In fact, they got a whole bunch of people to draw little digits and then label what they drew. That's how they got all these images. So there we go. I'm training it right now. And while that's training, don't worry, I didn't do too many epochs. But while that's training, I want to sort of go to the conclusion part, and we'll come back to this when it's done. Notice that a bigger network takes a lot longer to train. Remember how fast my XOR went? Okay, this one's going to take a bit longer, but it'll be done before we're finished here. If I wanted, you notice how I took pixels and numbers associated with pixels and stuck them in one end? I can do the child's game where I go A equals 1, B equals 2, C equals 3, and write a little secret code, and at the other side they translate back into A, B, and C. That's what a large language model does. It takes tokens, which are basically words, word fragments, changes them into numbers, and then it sticks the numbers in. The network does a bunch of math calculations. In other words, one big, long math equation. If you know the W's, it's a big, long math equation, and it spits numbers out. And then I translate those numbers back using my little code. That's all LLMs are doing. That's all ChatGPT is doing at the fundamental. Remember, I'm talking about this most fundamental level. I'm not putting protections on it so it doesn't act like Adolf Hitler. I'm not doing all that other stuff. I'm just taking the raw output, translating it back. Okay, so, in other words, ChatGPT, just like this, is a big, long math equation. Get that? I could write it on a piece of paper. Here's something I want you to think about. It's got a trillion parameters, so that there's a trillion W's, but it's still a big, long math equation. If I had enough paper, I could write it out as an equation with a bunch of tan H's in it and everything else. I could take that stack of paper and hand it to you. Did I just hand you something that was conscious? It's never going to be more than a math equation. Okay? A lot of people talk about hyperbole, but when you look at things in a simple way like this, you see what's really there. And then ask yourself, is this something that could be that? The thing that they're claiming when they talk about it. I'm not going to say whether it could or couldn't ever become conscious, but they're big, long math equations. And it seems intelligent. It seems like it almost seems conscious at times. It answers your questions correctly. Now, it's a big formula based on numbers. So does that mean that the chatbot is really conscious, or does it mean that our interactions with each other are things that are formulaic? Is our interactions formulaic? And I believe that your interactions are formulaic. If somebody is smart enough, they could predict what you're going to say because you're not the first person to ever have said it. Okay? So rather than thinking the chatbot is formulaic, or the chatbot is a human, think about it as humans are formulaic. In other words, humans sort of tend to act according to patterns. Anytime there's a pattern in anything, you can design a neural network to imitate that pattern. Okay, now that you see I've just trained it with 50 epochs, look at how low the loss got. 0.02, that's low. That means that I can actually use that now. Here's the weight. Well, there's a file with the weights in it. I can now use that, and I can use it. I can write those weights down on a piece of paper. I can send them to somebody, and they will have in their hand a check reader. They'll have something that I can read handwritten digits. So here's my conclusion. I already talked about my conclusion. Well, let me go back to my conclusion. Anything that can be turned into numbers can be used to train a neural network. In other words, anything. You can really turn anything into numbers. Anything you're watching on, anything that's on your computer or you're watching on a computer or somehow goes through a computer is digital. Digital means numbers. So anything, YouTube videos, numbers. Okay, if there's patterns in the numbers, you can train a neural network to imitate those patterns. Okay, in other words, they are knowledge and pattern repositories, not creative thinkers or innovators like you all are. They're just outputting the most probable answer based on the training data. Now, here's the important thing. They will never, in my opinion, become conscious entities or intelligent in the way we think of it. We call them artificial intelligence, but intelligent in the way we think of it, unless they can train on the fly. After this lecture's over, my neural net in my head will be different. I'll have learned new things, and so will all of yours. But guess what? If I took the entire transcript of my talk and plopped it into ChatGPT, it would give me a very cool summary or an answer, but its neural network hasn't changed a bit. It takes 6 months and $100 million to train its neural network. It doesn't do what we do, where it's training constantly with our interactions. So it doesn't retrain when it learns something new. If you ask it tomorrow and put the same thing in, it won't remember the talk that you gave it yesterday, okay? Because it's not retraining. And I think that's crucial for it to be able to make decisions the way we do. It has to be able to learn like we do. In other words, the whole neural net gets changed anytime you learn something. When you fall asleep, it retrains everything. That's just my hypothesis. However, it doesn't matter because it is useful. Being a pattern matcher and knowing everything about the internet and all the patterns on it is useful for business. Many jobs and tasks can already be supplemented or even be replaced by AI, as you know. Any knowledge-based work or pattern-based work can be done by AI, and there is a business opportunity right now, and that opportunity is to help businesses incorporate AI. It's something that is not happening as fast as everybody thought it would, and I think it's because a lot of people don't understand how to do it. They don't understand how AI can help them, and they don't understand how to do it even if they knew how to help them. Everybody knows you can make an AI be a drive-through operator where it says, "Hi, I'm at McDonald's, I'll take your order." You can even ask the chatbot in the voice mode to play McDonald's guy, and it'll do it perfectly. But you can do all that, but there's more other things, like anything in your business that has a pattern. Any busy work can be done by AI. ChatGPT will help you do it. Just say, "Here's my business." Plop in your prospectus or whatever and say, "Help me incorporate AI into my business." And you should do it. You may not think you should, but if you don't do it soon, you're going to be like the person who only accepts cash because they don't have a credit card reader. There's a few businesses like that now. In the future, having AI in your business is going to be just like that. You can not have it, but a lot of people won't go because it's like you don't have a credit card reader and I don't carry cash. Get the idea? Okay. So, when you hear a lot of hyperbolic sort of speech by people that like to talk about how the chatbot's doing anything that's crazy and is going to take over the world and all that. That may be true if they give it the control to do it, but I hope you guys will not allow it to. I've got a bunch of, like I said, I'm the dean of the engineering school at the University of Marion. I've got a bunch of our engineering quarterly newspapers. If you're interested, you can come and grab one. It tells you about all the things that we do out there at the University of Marion. I teach a class where it's a freshman class, junior class, where they have to write their own neural network to solve a problem from scratch, and they can't use the chatbot to do it. So, and that's it. Thank you very much. Is there any questions?
All right. John, do you want to join me over here?
Sure.
Wow.
I tried to take up
That's
as
a
much
lot.
time as I could so I wouldn't have to be on the spot.
We're gonna put you on the spot. Yes.
Wow. Anyway, so you said to improve your business or to get help with ChatGPT, what kind of question would you put in there? I mean, because there is so many things you could ask.
Well, it's not crucially important what question you ask. In fact, the reason that my question was so dense with information is I wanted to be able to show you that I can ask one question and it gets the answer right away. But you can ask it a whole bunch of little questions and it'll actually guide you along the way, and you can say, oh yeah, but I actually wanted this. Okay, well, how about this? Well, can you make it more this? And you just keep asking it those questions. So you don't have to be, a computer scientist or anything like that, and you don't even have to know anything about your subject. You can have it walk it through, and if there's anything you don't understand, say, I don't understand what you mean by quarterly profits or whatever, and it'll go through a whole history lesson on it. So that's the way to do it. Just have it walk you through. Just start and have it and say, here's my business. What can you think? How can I incorporate AI into it?
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And then just walk from there.
Thank you.
So it occurs to me, and I guess I knew this a little bit anyway, but your AI is really only as good as those pairs that are used to program it.
Yep.
So I guess that's where you hear about potential bias, whether it's intentional or not. It's really the quality of those questions
Yep.
and answer pairs. So
Like self-guided learning is how they do large language models, where they just take the entire internet and dump it in there. And so the correct answer is actually the next token in the sentence. So in other words, it'll be reading sentences off of all the different sites like Facebook and Reddit and Open and X and all these sites. And it'll just basically be trying to predict the next word or something in the sentence. It sticks in this half of the sentence and tries to predict the other one. If it gets it right, or if it gets one of the possible right things, that counts as right. You get the idea? And so you just keep dumping the whole internet in there. And you do it for 6 months with huge computing power. In other words, this MNIST thing that I showed you, before I even press enter, hardly, it'll have trained that. These data centers are really serious, and it takes them 6 months or more, sometimes 9 months, to train on that amount of data.
So the updates to these different AIs probably are done. They're probably constantly chewing on their next. On their next
right
version.
now they're training the one that's going to update the one we're using right now. Yeah.
Okay. Yes.
So do you think you can use the chatbot to actually answer and not look at the answer
Well, that's something I didn't mention, but I should, because it's kind of profound. If I train it on the 60,000 question-answer pairs, there's another 10,000 that they gave that's in that data set. I didn't show it to you, but there's another 10,000. Once you've trained it on this 10,000, I can put the ones that it never saw in there, and it gets the right answer on them. So it's not just memorizing the answers. What it's doing is memorizing the patterns, sort of the logic in the answers. The thing I make my students do is they make a binary adder, a binary calculator. I make them so that you can give it binary numbers and it'll add them all up. And then you train it on a whole bunch of correct answers and then stick in one that it's never seen before, and it correctly can add them together. And the way I'm talking about it is as if it's a human. right? It can actually add them together. It's a big, long math formula. And the thing about it is that problem, adding numbers, can be summarized in a big, long math formula, and that's why it works. Anything that cannot be encapsulated in a big, long math formula can't be done by a chatbot. Because that is really what it is. In fact, if you don't believe me, open up your chat machine, ChatGPT or whatever, and say, is a neural network nothing but a big, long math formula? Ask it that. See what it says.
This was so good, and for people, this is your first time here, I think this is funny how intense it was. But, and then I also think it was funny that how smart you are, but the PowerPoint slide
Yeah, I know.
piece was.
I don't know how to get it
That
to
was
start
good.
from where I
So
left
I
off.
asked ChatGPT for a
Oh,
question,
good.
actually. So, given the pace of AI development, what's one thing you think most people are underestimating or overestimating about its impact in the next 2 to 3 years?
Oh, wow. I think that they're overestimating its, that it's going to take over the world. But it's not I don't think they're overestimating the job impact it's going to have. Any kind of new technology, game-changing technology like this has a huge impact on jobs. Usually, it has a corresponding job creation impact, so that jobs that are lost in one sector, like the candlestick makers, for example, end up being not the same people, but the same amount of jobs come in the light bulb factory worker. You know what I mean? So when something big like this happens, new jobs are created and old jobs are lost. But in this case, so many jobs are replaceable by AI that I mean, in a given town, you have one candlestick maker, but you got a lot of people that can be replaced by AI. Knowledge workers, and there are also middle class, upper middle class workers that'll be replaced. So it's going to have a huge impact, and I don't know how governments are going to deal with it, but they'll come up with some solution. But in the long term, there will be other jobs. I have faith in capitalism, so I do believe, and in innovation. So I do believe that more jobs will come up on this sector when these ones go away, but hopefully it doesn't take too long so that there isn't misery in the middle. But it's probably going to happen within the next 5 or 10 years, I think.
Probably not a Terminator scenario, but still scary in its own way, right? Just the disruption.
Yeah.
And I think we're starting to see that already. Yes.
So you've got about, a couple dozen people here today. What's one thing that they can take back to their office this morning and be more productive?
If I was you guys, firstly, if you're computer savvy and you don't have a business, a good business would be helping people incorporate AI into their existing business, because most people have no clue how to do that or even where to start. And even if the chatbot gives you sort of a step-by-step instructions on how to do it, somebody that knows a little bit about technology has to be able to hook various things up. Like, for example, if I wanted a drive-through, if I wanted my McDonald's franchise to have a chatbot as my drive-through voice, I can have that happen already with ChatGPT. I can have my phone act like that. But how does the information it hears and gives get translated into the screen that says, I need another Big Mac and I need more fries? Somebody that knows how to do that kind of connection needs to be able to connect, the actuator, they need to be able to connect that to that so that when I say Big Mac, it appears on the Big Mac screen for the robot or the cook to make the Big Mac. So my thing is, if you know computing, you can be that. You can start your business that. If you don't know computing, first thing I do is what the lady over here said, which is ask the chatbot where AI might help my business.
I just have a statement, not a question. I'm Cassie Bowers with Congresswoman Julie Fedorchak's office. And AI is obviously a huge topic in DC, and we are starting an AI working group, or not we, Congresswoman Julie is, and they have their first meeting scheduled in DC next week. No, tomorrow actually.
Nice.
And then we are going to have 2 different AI working groups here in North Dakota. So if there are any suggestions, please reach out to our office. because we are really involved in this with all the big tech companies, to work through this AI. I don't want to say concern, because I don't know if it's a concern, but how are we going to regulate it, and how we can just make sure that we're on the front end of it, not on the
Right.
back end of it. And the next 2 years are going to be very intense on where we go with this. So
Yeah,
it's
agreed.
now, it's not later, that we start to respond and figure out how we're going to work with AI.
Well, the same thing's happening in education, too, as you can imagine. There's cheating and all that, but also people are trying to figure out how to incorporate it into education to maybe help education work more smoothly. In fact, next week I'm going to be in San Francisco at an AI in undergraduate education conference, where the whole topic of the conference is how do we use this, or how do we make it work with education. If anybody online heard what she was saying, there's some groups, government groups here locally, and she was asking what sort of things that they might want to concentrate on for the future as far as policy and things to do with AI. So probably suggestions would be nice.
It's a good question.
Yes. So this is just a statement based on what I've been talking. So like one thing that you can do that's easy enough for a business, because I think like I'm one of the faculty members in the school. Some business, they're actually halfway through the automation process. So then you can actually do what Dr. Peeling said, like to connect easier. So let's say I was traveling last weekend, and then I want just some like water at like McDonald's, so we could refill like our water bottles to keep traveling. And then the lady gave me like plastic cups, and then I was like, can you just refill my bottle? I don't want to waste plastic cups. But like, and then I realized, actually she just inputs like water, and then it already spits out the water cup. Like she doesn't have access to the water. She doesn't have access to the cup. So like it's halfway automated, it's the process already automated. So like it's, for those businesses, it's going to be a lot easier to connect.
Yeah.
Because like halfway is already done. Now we just need the other half.
All you need is the voice to turn into a button push.
Yeah, so now like there are some businesses that are actually not automated at all, Like for example, you can transfer your, I can make my house be 100% more, or let's say 30% more efficient in heat by understanding many things during the day and opening, closing windows and doing stuff like that.
And in fact, that's another thing that you can, it's not just about pushing buttons and stuff. You can take your profit loss, you can take all your stuff and just plop it in there as a PDF or as any kind of file, Excel spreadsheet, and say, give me a summary and give me some suggestions on how I can improve the bottom line here, and it'll do it. And it'll do it fairly correctly. It's improving all the time. In fact, we used to think as educational institutions that we'll just find this latest software to catch cheaters, the chatbot detector. But that's not going to work because the AI is improving faster than the chatbot detectors, and you're never going to catch cheating. You've got to just incorporate it and see if you can promote learning at the same time as they're using it. Yeah.
All right.
I've got
one last question. Okay.
Well, I had a
All right.
question here, and then I've got.
My question is, so you put in your question into the chat, and if you get the wrong answer because you're like testing it to see if it knows, what do you do when you get the wrong answer? Do you say, no, that's not correct, or
Yeah.
this part is not correct?
It doesn't matter what you say, because remember, it's not training on the fly. You could say, that's not correct, the correct answer is this, and I guess what it's going to say. It's going to say, oh, of course, yes, you're right. Oh, I'm sorry, yeah, you're absolutely right. The correct answer is this. And it's another wrong answer. You say, no, that's still wrong. Oh, yeah, you're absolutely right. That's how it acts. You
So
don't know if it's the
it
correct
acts
answer.
like somebody that doesn't want to take responsibility.
Well, no, it's just, it doesn't want to be negative, but it's not going to always know the correct answer. In fact, in research level problems, you know how they test them by seeing if they're at PhD level or not? Well, I am at PhD level, so I can ask it questions that are PhD level questions, and I do it all the time, and it's always wrong. And I can walk it through a problem, and I got to go right till the last step and say, this is the right answer, and I wish you could retrain yourself so you could memorize this, because I know next time I ask you, you're still not going to get it, and I'll have to walk you through it again. It's only going to give you the most probable answer found in the internet. Now, if I have a new problem that people aren't chatting about on the internet and don't know what the answer is, it doesn't know either, and it can't ever know. It's not innovative. It
Okay,
it
so
only
that's
matches
where the
patterns.
human aspect can come in.
Yeah.
And then the other question is these big data centers that they're building, like the one in Allendale, is that something that's working for AI or is it something
Could be
else?
Bitcoin mining too.
Okay, and so how is that going to affect us as people with these huge things that are drawing all this electricity? Is
Price of
our
electricity
price
will
going to
go
go up
Yeah.
for electricity?
Yeah, until they build more energy sources to provide more electricity. But as it keeps going up, but I think they're predicting this and they're starting to build out more electrical generators as time goes on because they can see the writing is on the wall that it's going to skyrocket in demand. But both Bitcoin mining or crypto mining and AI are huge energy drains in the grid.
So my question has to do with safety of data, and I think people have maybe are a little bit afraid of that. So the Chat GPT learns by having more and more information fed into it. So what happens to my business information that I plop into this thing to say, hey, do better, and all of a sudden it's out there in the net?
Well, it won't be out there.
Learning, because if you're doing an online Chat GPT, it does not become part of.
No, it doesn't.
Okay.
It can't do that. It can only learn when you put it in there, it does save as a conversation, and it'll save some important aspects of that in a separate file over here. And here's what happens. Next time you ask a question, it'll take that file, tack it onto the start of your question, and put the whole thing into that big math equation. So your saved stuff goes in front of yours into the math equation so that it actually can say, oh, I remember that you are a small business owner, blah, blah, blah. And you're like, I didn't tell him that. How did I know that? Because it took the saved stuff and plopped it in as part of the question. But it doesn't take any of that and retrain. Sometimes when you click how am I doing, or was this answer a good one, and you click a thumbs up like it was a good answer, it'll take that and save it somewhere and then use that in the next time it trains as a question-answer pair that you said was correct.
So no problem at all putting confidential
Well,
information in there.
The confidential information that you're putting on Facebook and on emails and on Reddit and anything that you're doing that a company owns, like if you're using Gmail, I don't know if they're using your data, but they certainly could. It's on their server. But the point of the matter is, if you Google your own name, if you're famous enough, and you don't have to be that famous. I mean, if I ask the chatbot who is Dr. Terry Pilling, it'll tell me a summary of me. And I'm not that famous, and I don't have any social media accounts. So if you're completely unknown to the internet, the chatbot will have no idea who you are. The more known you are on the internet, the more it'll know about you. If you ask about our university president, Monsignor James Shea, it'll know paragraphs and paragraphs because he's been on TV, he's been on the radio, and there's a lot known about him. So basically, since it's gobbling up the internet and training, it'll know about the things that are on the internet. And the answers it gives are going to be the most common answers to the questions you ask. Or nonsense if there has never been asked a question like that.
In terms of confidential information you're putting in, it's not learning that clearly, right?
If
Other
a whole
than in
bunch
that
of people
file.
put that same thing in, if 1,000 people said, Terry's social security number is blah, 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 and 1,000 people did that on the internet and posted it there, and it was on the internet at the time they trolled it, and then when I typed in what's Terry's social security number, it would probably give me the right answer.
I'll have to try that, check that. All right, we've gone over time. Thank you all for sticking with us. We always ask the same last question of our entrepreneurs. I'm going to change it up a little bit, I think, for you. Instead of what we can do to help you succeed, would be maybe what suggestions would you have for the audience relative to AI when they get back to their office this morning?
Well, I kind of answered that. If you are interested in getting ahead of the curve, everyone's going to be forced to put it in. Unless you want to be the cash guy when everyone else has a credit card reader, you're eventually going to have to incorporate it in some way because it makes things so much more efficient that the person who has it is going to have a much more efficient business than the one who doesn't. Even if it doesn't save you in a number of employees. They're always telling you they're firing all these people. But even if you don't fire anybody is what I'm talking about, it's still going to make the people you do have much more efficient. For example, they can summarize documents, they can find legal advice, all these things. You can find contract, you can find building code stuff. You could take a big, thick thing of building codes and plop the PDF in there and say, is any of these relevant to my business? And it'll list all the ones that are relevant. You used to have a person go through these things. It saves you a lot of time. So, and there's lots of other things you can do to save yourself time and effort with AI. So I'd get on that. And it'll make your people more happy because it actually gets rid of the busy kind of work. You know, the make work projects. It allows people to spend their time doing creative things rather than make work project boring stuff.
Cool. Well, thank you, Dr. Pilling. Let's give a round of applause for Dr. Pilling.
Thank you.
Okay, what we've got coming up, we've got Jay Dobo coming up on the 30th. We've got Golden Path Solutions coming back on our stage. It's been a little while since we've heard from them. They've done some amazing things, August 6th. And then on the 13th, this was one in our series of AI where we're kind of under the hood. We're going to talk about some use cases as far as just how are people using this today in business to help them what they're doing. And then a little bit later after that, we're going to maybe have a little fun with the future of AI, but we're still a little uncertain about how that's going to go. So I think this was a great kickoff, Dr. Pilling. Thank you so much. I feel like I understand a lot more just kind of that equation driven. It's also easy to understand why it takes a while for these networks to get trained and why it takes a lot of energy, electrical energy to make this happen, just watching your computer chew as long as it did on something so simple. Okay, so if you or anybody you know would like to present, has a business, has something cool that they're doing in the community, have them get in touch with us. There are a number of ways to do that, and we will work with them to get them on our stage. We do only have a few openings yet this year, so we've had really good luck this year keeping that pipeline full, but we do have some spaces, so let us know.